I will let you know for sure when we start tomorrow. All right, so start bringing up this Getting Started with MVC5 series. I'm bringing up the first one. Literally, this will take us 2 minutes to go through because it's one page. All right. Now, notice it says an updated version of this tutorial is available here. We're not going to do the updated one because that's the core stuff. That's MVC6. All right. The next time the class runs, that's probably what we'll end up going through. So, this tutorial teaches ASP.NET MVC Core, MVC with controllers and views, and Razor. There are 11 lessons in here. This is lesson 0. What you're looking at now isn't really a lesson. I'm not going to read these to you, but you can see them. All right, they are all anywhere from 4 pages long to about 20 pages long. We are going to go through this entire project. My hope is that you will be coding along with me, yours will work, and then I will have you turn it in, and everybody can get a free 100 points. All right? What's that? I don't know how we're going to do that with you. You're just special. All right. So, it says here, if you want to work with Azure, all right, you need an Azure account. Here's another funny thing. Remember how I told you guys, remember when I was on the phone last month and I finally got that fixed? Well, I got my MasterCard and they charged me $74.10 again. Yes. So, I mean, it's been a great day. And so I sent the guy an email, and I took a picture of the bill, and I said, please fix this. So we'll see. All right. It says getting started. It's getting started by installing Visual Studio 2017. Well, 4 out of the 5 of us, or 5 out of the 6 of us in here have got a good install on Visual Studio 2017. So that's good. All right. So, if you would please, in Visual Studio, click the double disk icon and do a file close solution on what we have been working on. All right? Why? Because we are going to create a new project in just a minute. We don't need that start page open, so you can just be right here like this. So click New Project. As it says, select ASP.NET Web. You know the drill by now. Here they show you how to do it even. They want us to call, let's just use their verbiage, MVC movie with both M's being big. See that? Everybody see on the screen there? Right there. Just save that onto your desktop. It is going to be, it will be an MVC project, all right, in just a minute. So MVC movie. File, new, project. Save it to the desktop. MVC movie. Just like that. Everybody cool with that? All right. Make sure it's ASP.NET web application. We don't care about Git still. Click OK. That brings us to here. We're all familiar with this by now. We want to choose MVC. We want to change our authentication so that it's individual user accounts. So make sure you change under this the project dialog. Choose MVC. Make sure MVC should be checked here. We don't need to add the unit tests, but change your authentication so it's individual user accounts. So in other words, MVC, forget that. Change authentication to individual user accounts. Everybody got all that? Click OK on the user accounts. Click OK on the project. You know what that does already. All right. It says it's going to create that default. Basically, it's a hello world, but it's a good place to start. We don't have to run it. I think we've run that enough times that, you know, if you look on the screen here, we're all familiar enough with this, correct? So as they say right out of the box, this default template gives you home, contact, and about pages, all right, which are not shown on here, but that's fine. Also, that's one thing, I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you. If I didn't, shame on me. But if you do run this, it's bootstrapped right out of the box too. I don't know if you've ever noticed that or not, but if you smash down your screen size, so in other words, I'm just going to run this. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to just I'll run my, under views, I'll choose my home, index.cshtml, view it in the browser. And again, if you look on the screen here, whoops, right out of the box when it comes up, it's bootstrapped. It's responsive. It's funny. I think I told you guys this. We're using a different book this semester than you guys used for the AWD1111 class. And they're having their test on Thursday. And they're going to have to take their whole website they're working on and make it responsive. All right. It's going to be very interesting to see how they do. All right. Well, eventually that'll come up. That's it for part one. Now, I do want to mention something to you, that when we get to the point where we're starting to build our own e-commerce system, make sure we turn Git on. Everybody hear that? We do want to do it that way because we're going to be doing it in stages. Does that make sense to everyone? That way, if you're sick or if you screw up or whatever, you can back up if you ever want to or need to do that. And you're like, well, I never want to do that. Well, you never know. Don't ever say never. So again, there it is, bootstrapped right out of the box. See that? All right. So that wasn't too difficult. That was part one. File, open. I'm going to go to part two. No, it's giving me that, but it is. Adding a controller. All right. So, again, look on the screen, please. I don't want to read this to you. I don't want to say it out loud. You should all have an idea now what MVC stands for, what MVC is. All right? So it says, let's begin by creating a controller class. You know how to do this. And if you don't, look on the screen. You want to right mouse click on your controllers folder, choose add, choose controller. All right, so again, right mouse click on your controllers folder, choose add, choose controller. All right. We are told in here that what we want to add is an MVC5 controller empty. Empty. So please choose empty for your type, which is the top choice right there, and click add. Now, do you notice when you do this, since it's an empty controller, it doesn't come up with that big dialogue like we saw with the other one? Because the other one needs to know it's building a bunch of stuff for you in the background. It needs to get some more information so it knows to build the right stuff, so to speak. All right? So we are told in here that we want to call this new controller, I don't know why, but Hello World controller. Okay, that's what they want. All right? And again, I know I've said this to you before. I'm going to keep saying some of this stuff. Notice how it does that for you? Keep the word controller in there. In that route file that we saw before, it's looking for something that ends with controller. All right, we want to call this Hello World, one word with a big H and a big W. So Hello World controller. And you know this by now. Not only does it create a new Hello World controller for you here, but when we look in views, there will now be a new folder under our views that is called Hello World. right there. But notice, because this is new, look, nothing in there. Why? Because we created an empty controller, right? So it made the folder, but it didn't put anything in it. All right, sort of what we did in the last project, not completely. All right. So here is the controller. You've seen this kind of thing before. Again, not what we would call very much in there. So you've seen this thing before. You know, you got your usings, the namespace with a controller, and just the index. This is big. That's why it looks so funky. All right. All right. Next it says we're going to replace the contents of the code with the following. Well, again, this is some busy work. So I'll tell you what, I'll grab this stuff, put it in here, and then you can type it in. Or you can, if you've got your own, you can do that too. Let's see, so the index. Let's see. Again, this is in our Hello World controller. We're bringing this up right here, and we're replacing what was inside of here with this. That was nice. All right, everybody read that okay? You've also got it online. Now, you all know this. If you look up on the screen here, you all know this. We know how to test this now, correct? So let's do it. So I'm going to click the double disk icon. All right. And right now it's good. It's just got these two return statements in there. But it should work that if I've got in here now under home, I've got this index. I can run that. Okay, I can run the index file so I can view in browser, but I'm going to change index, home index, I'm going to change that to hello world. And it's not case sensitive, so I'm just going to come in here and in lowercase type in hello world, hit enter, and it says this is my default action. Where did it get that from? You already know this. All right. It got that from, this is my default action. So now if I put welcome on the end, it should say this is the welcome action method, correct? So /welcome. Any surprises? All that makes sense? All right. So again, we first came in here and after our port name, when it first came up, it just had home index. And it didn't really do anything. It just gave us our generic project. We changed it to hello world here, which automatically ran the hello world index. We could have put that in there afterward too if we wanted to. All right. And then we changed, and instead of index, we put in welcome. And we saw both of our routines ran. Now, this is what I want you to understand. Please look on the screen here. It may sound simple, but I want you to understand it. What does MVC stand for? Model View Controller. Right now, we're using C. We're not doing anything with our view in here. Remember how we'd always been saying return view? Now we're returning a string. See that right there and right there? So we're using our controller as both our controller and our view. Does that make sense? You typically don't want to do that. All right? Because we've got a three-pronged architecture, model, view, controller, and we're not using the model. It doesn't make sense to use. We don't have a database yet. We'll have one soon. But we're not using the view. We're using the controller to do everything. And it's not that you can't do that. We've just proven you can do it. Okay? But it's not recommended practice to do that. All right. So there was our default action, etc. All right. Now it says you set formatting inside of here. I'm asking you this question. Please look on the screen and don't lie, okay? Does all this that's in here make sense? Because if it doesn't, say so. This is set up right now. We only have one route that we've got in here. We're telling the system that if you just put in, if all you put in is your port name, run the home controller. All right? And if all you put in is a port name, run the home controller and run the index method of the home controller. Now, the second time, remember we changed it to hello world? And that's all I put in? It still says run index. For whatever this is, run index as the default. Does that make sense? So it was only when we ran hello world and welcome that we got something different than we ran. All right. What we'll eventually be doing is we'll be adding stuff to this file, not in this project, but in the project we do. Yes. No, what it's doing here is, for now, yes. But eventually, what we're going to do is we'll have buttons and different things on our form and whatever that we'll be able to move from place to place. Yes, they will act, pretty much, yeah. But again, as you go on and you write more complex applications, this file will get bigger because the system isn't that smart to always be able to do everything right. But you can see the importance of naming things, index, for example. All right. All right, so they explain this in depth here. First part of the URL, etc. So it's all in there. So if you didn't really understand it, but you didn't want to say anything, you can read that if you want to. All right. Now, then they come in here and they say this. Okay. It says hello world, and then notice this ampersand, name equals Scott, and num times equal 4. Everybody see this? Well, remember that one of the things that we can do in this route.config is what we can put in here is this, which is that optional parameter. All right? Optional literally meaning that it'll, if you put it in, fine. If you don't put it in, fine. All right? So what we're told to do here, it says, let's modify the example slightly so that you can pass in something like this. All right? So the author says, change the welcome method so that it includes 2 parameters. So please look on the screen here. So change your welcome method so that it looks like what you see right there, right here. Right now yours says public string welcome paren. So you'll want to change the whole thing so it looks like this. This return you can put on 1 line or 2 lines like they did. It doesn't matter. Now, let me just tell you this. If you're bringing up your own program, in other words, if you're bringing up either the PDF I gave you or the Word document, you don't have to type in a flaming thing. You can copy it, especially if you bring up the Word one, you can just copy it right from Word and put it in there, and it'll work. So especially if you're not a fan of typing, or if you're a slow typist, then do that. None of you are, I won't say his name, but a student that graduated last May that was literally the slowest typist I have ever seen in my entire life. All right? No, it isn't you. You know who it is, though, I think, and then we'll just leave it at that. All right? So I'm going to go back to my welcome here in my Hello World controller, and I'm just going to remove what's there, and I'm going to replace it with that. Now, it's being a real bear as far as copying this stuff, because it's copying it all in as one big string, which I don't like, but it is anyway. All right? So now, if you look at it, please, this is what you have to understand. Look on the screen, please. If I don't pass anything in for name, guess what? It'll still work, because it'll default to the empty string. All right? If I don't pass anything in for this, it should fail. Why? What? Yeah, because it's a number. All right? So I'm going to save this again, jump back quickly into here, and it says to run this and put in this. I don't know what that's doing. What the heck happened there? I don't know. So run it again. Go to welcome, put in question mark name equals, and put in any name you want, including yours, ampersand num times equal 4. So if you put it in like they show it here, this is what it should say. Right there. Hello Scott, num times is 4. So I'm going to run this again. I'm going to change it from home to hello world. And I put in hello world question mark name equals Scott and num times equal 4. Hit enter. What didn't it like? Oh, it's hello world welcome, not hello world. There you go. Did that work for everyone? Do you understand what's going on there? And again, you might say, I do, this is way too simplistic. Well, it won't be once we get through with this app. All right? We're going to make a movie database. We'll have movies and stuff in it. Now, next they want you to replace this welcome that's right here. First of all, just so you see this, see where it says here HTML encode? Everybody see that? You may or may not be aware of this. I'm going to take for granted that you've all seen something like this. You've all been out on the internet where you go and sign up for something or whatever, and it's got like first name and then a box. You've all done something like that, correct? All right. One thing I may or may not have told you, you may or may not know. If you go in there and you type in, for example, this script, and then just say something like alert, hello. And then end your script tag. All right? Let's say you type that in. And if you type that in, if it comes back with an alert box on your screen and it says hello, guess what? You can go in there and do all sorts of bad crap in that site because they're allowing JavaScript. When you encode, what it does is instead of, it takes that script thing right there and it turns it into ampersand LT script ampersand GT. Remember those HTML entities? That's what the encoding does. Because that way when it tries to run it, that isn't executable. That is. So when you see that encode right there, that's what it's doing, is it's trying to do a little bit of security prevention. I think I mentioned this to you guys probably in a different class, but I still remember this, that it's about 10 years ago, I went to a PHP conference, and I went to this thing on security, and I went to a bunch of seminars while I was there, and they were all in smaller rooms that held about 25 people. This one had almost 200 crammed into a room for 25 people. Because that's how bad a problem security is. Because most people who code are never trained in how to do security. And I'm not going to lie and say, well, you guys are. All right. My friend Doug that I used to work with at Blackhawk, I'd have him come into my classes. And I had to teach him the coding, and then he figured out the security part. He taught it to my students. All right. But using stuff like encode is at least a way to try to bake in some security from the start. Okay. And as it says there, if you want more on that I just gave you, if you look on the screen here, there's a hyperlink right there. They have an article. All right. So then they say replace the welcome method with this code. So again, if you look up on the screen, I'm going to get rid of this welcome method that's here. And I'm going to replace it with that. What's different? String name int ID. The first time we had int ID. What is this? What is that? It's 1. I know that. What is that? What's the word for that? What? What? It's a default value. It's saying if you don't put anything in, have it still work. Look up on the screen if you would. Please. Remember this thing I just ran here? This? What if I leave this off? I don't put a 0, I put nothing in there. All right? It may still work. I don't know. It says num times is 1. But I think it's grabbing that. I think that was cached in there. So I'm going to try to refresh. In fact, I'll just say question mark name equals Scott. All right? Now I think it's cached. But I want it to not blow up. All right? And that's why we put that in. And that's what I want you to get out of what's in here. That's all. Welcome action contains an IT parameter EL. Again, they go through this big, long, hairy-winded explanation to explain this. All right. It says the third time the URL segment matched the route parameter. The welcome contains an ID that matched this. All right. So everybody see this? You all see that line in yellow? That's everything that's not home. But it's smart enough to map up and say, okay, this this, etc. So this is not, Colin, I don't think, what you asked or whoever asked this, but notice we can add another route here. And as your applications get more complex, usually that's what you do because you want control over what's going to happen by default when you do something. So as it says, for most MVC applications, the default route works fine. You'll learn later in this tutorial to pass data using what's called the model binder. All right. So that's the end of lesson 2. Still don't know why it's doing that, but it is. So let's look at the third one. Adding a view. All right. It says in this section you're going to modify the Hello World controller class to use view template files to encapsulate. So in other words, we're going to pull the code out that we have been putting into the controller and put it in a view. All right. It says you'll create a template file using the Razor View engine. You already know all this stuff. Currently, we're doing something like this. All right. So what we want to do is right mouse click on our views folder, choose add view. All right. If everybody please do this. Right mouse click in your views folder. All right. Right now in views, well, you can see what's in there. All right. And I think we're supposed to do it under Hello World. So under views, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's under views Hello World. Yep, there it is, Hello World. All right. So right mouse click on your Hello World folder under views, which is currently empty. Choose add, choose view. All right. And we'll want to call this index. I don't know if we want to put anything else in. Let's take a quick look. Specify the name as index. All right. In the select layout page dialog, accept the default and click OK. So when we get done, this is what our page should look like. So I'm going to come in here. I am going to accept this, just an empty one. All right. And I'm going to click add. There it is. Not much in there right now. That's just fine. So in the book here, if you look, or in the handout, whatever you want to call it, this is what they say our file structure should now look like. Right there. So what I'm going to try to do here, if you look on the screen, is to compare these two. All right. Got a lot of stuff open, so I'm going to close a bunch of it. So it says what? MVC movie, properties, references, app data, app start. We don't have to open that. We know what's in there. Content, boom. Controllers. We know we added our own controller in there. All right. Our Hello World. Fonts, models, scripts, views. Under views, we've got our Hello World. And under Hello World, we've got our index. Again, I can open all these if we need proof. But what I'm saying is so far, we have set up our our file structure is set up correctly. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. This is the code that we want to put into the index file right here. Let me blow this up so you can see it. So in your index.cshtml that you just created, put in that code, please. Again, if you don't want to type, bring it up in your Word format or your PDF, highlight it all like this, you know, Control C, Control V. Let me throw it in quickly into mine, and I'll come right back. So, oh boy, LAL equals this. View bait is there. H2 is there. Hello. Okay. I think that's everything. Icon in front of views. Here, that's a tilde. It's the one that's way up above your tab key. Shift, and then right below the escape. That basically, for lack of better words, it's like home. Yeah, that's a tilde. What's up there? That's a tilde. You ever, like in Spanish where you say señor, the ña for N, you put a tilde over it. But here it means something different. There shouldn't be. Now, oh, that's right. Yeah, there's an underscore there. It's underscore layout. That just didn't show. If you put all that in and you save it, and as Evan said, you're sure that you have an underscore there. So if you go into your code right here, notice the underscore did come in, even though it didn't show there. If you click the double disk icon and you take this index and you view it in the browser, it should say hello from the view template. Yeah, make me a layer. That's what it should have said. Let's see. It's still running the code that is in our controller. It's still running this code by default because we told it to return that. All right? That's why it's still running that. So don't worry about it. It's going to all be fixed. Okay? In fact, if you look up on the screen here, if we remove this right there and we change this to return view like that, we'll have to change this to action result. So please do both those. Go to your controller and change index so it looks like this. Now if I double click the disk icon and I go and I run my index.cshtml, now let's see what this says. Hello from our view template. All right, as my friend Doug would say, la frickin' da. All right, ta frickin' da. Do you understand? I'm asking you this. What's happening here? Look on the screen. We are typing in after our port number, we're typing in hello world. We're not giving it anything else, so it's automatically running the index. The index is telling it to return whatever is in index in the view folder, which is this file, which is this. Does the progression, what we're doing, does it make sense to people? Because that's what MVC is all about. All right? I mean, I'm not trying to make it too simplistic, but basically that is what it's about. Now, if you notice, it says you can also right mouse click the file and choose View in Page Inspector. That's a little confusing. I don't want to go through the Page Inspector. If you want to, you can do that yourselves. All right. Does this make sense? Everyone, please look on the screen. Notice I've got Hello World Index. If I hit enter now, should it look the same? Yes, because it defaults to what? Index, right? So whether I put the index there or I don't, it's going to look the same. Now, if I put it to the other one that was welcome, it's going to, of course, look different. All right? We'll finish this one up. We've got a good start on it for today. It says, looks pretty good. However, notice the browser's title bar says index myasp.net applet. All right, and the big link on top says application name. It says, depending on how small you make your browser, you might need to click 3 bars in order to be able to see all the stuff. So the author's saying, let's pretty this up a little bit. All right, so we're told next to open up the _layout.cshtml file. Please, again, look on the screen. If you open up shared down here, okay, you'll notice there is layout.cshtml. That is the default layout file that every single web page will use unless you tell it not to. I'm going to say that again. This is the default layout file that every single web page uses unless you tell it to use something else. So for instance, if we don't want this myasp.net web application right there, if we don't want that, we just highlight it and hit delete. This should say for every page. So if I'm on a home page, that should be home. If I'm on a welcome page, that should be welcome. If I'm on an about page, that should be about. Does that make sense? That's the title. That view bag title is getting, it's getting passed in from whichever one of these we're at. Okay? It's smart enough to know that, and it passes it out, or passes it over. So we're supposed to open up the layout file. Again, these look really crunched. I had to do some crunching to make it all fit on a page. That's why if it looks a little funky, that's why it looks a little funky. All right. Layout templates, as it says there, allow you to specify the HTML container layout in one place. It says find that render body. All right. It says change the contents of the title element and change the action link from application name to MVC movie and the controller from home to movies. What? Then let's look right here. Go to your Hello World, the one that we made under Hello World, the index.cshtml, and make it look like this. Again, there's a lot of typing to do there, so you may want to just open up that file in Word or open it up as a PDF, highlight all of it, and just copy it in. All right, because like I said, you can see there's a lot of code there. That's a whole page worth of code. We're not changing too much in there. We're changing a bit. I guess, not to be funny or anything, but I've never counted, so I don't know exactly. Really, I'm just saying, I don't know how many we're actually changing. Right? Oh, you're right. Yeah, it is. It's the layout file, I think. You think you're right that we're supposed to be changing. Let's look. Yes, it is. Change the content, so go into the layout file and add all this stuff. All right. It looks like it probably, I think it'll copy better from the Word file than it will from here. Here it's pushing everything and putting a lot of it in one line, which is really a pain in the butt. I'm going to see if I open that in Word. There it is. All right. Yeah, that copies directly if you copy it in from the Word file. Run the application. All right, well, even a better idea is to save it first, then run the application. So I'm just going to bring it up from my index. I'll do it right from the index in Hello World. See how this has changed? See how it says MVC movie there? All right, not that that's a big thing, but ideally, just so you know, you don't have to just put text there. If you've got a logo, you can put a logo there. If you want to put a little image there, you can put an image there. All right? And it says that when we go from page to page, so if I click on home and I go to about, come on, still says MVC movie. If I go to contact, it still says MVC movie. I mean, not a lot of this stuff that we're doing so far, you look at and you go, so? All right? But they're walking you through this really slowly, purposely. All right. The author says, look at the view start file. If you look at the screen right here, it says it contains the exact same razor markup. The key thing is right here. I want you to understand this. All right? And so I'm going to bring that line up. That one. Do you understand when you look at this? Do you understand what this means is, unless told otherwise, your layout should use _layout.cshtml. Does that make sense? If you've got your own custom layout you want to create for a page, you'll just have to make sure that it's not set like this. That's all. It's really not a lot of work to do that. The work is setting up another layout page. All right, the author says, let's change the title of the index view. Open the hello world index.cshtml. We've done this several times. So open up the hello world under views, the index.cshtml. And we want to change the view bag title, and we want to change the H2 that's there. The view bag title should be movie list, and the title that's right here should be my movie list. So we want this to be movie list, and we want this to be my movie list. All right, is that big a thing? Again, not at all. If I come in and I run this, there's my movie list, and up here it changed what's in the tab up here, the text in the tab. Okay, if you look up on the screen, please, because this is a brand new topic. We've never talked about this. What ASP.NET employs is something that's called bundling, B-U-N-D-L-I-N-G. I'm asking you this question. Do you all understand the difference between the Jquery file, minified and not minified? Do you all understand the difference between those? Okay, you three are shaking your heads. You two? When it's minified, you remove all unnecessary comments and white space. All right? When it's not minified, it shows all that. The reason I'm telling you that is there are tools that you can use that will take all of your JavaScript and it will minify it for you. So even if you've written thousands of lines of your own, it'll minify it. And it'll take any CSS that you're using and it'll minify that. What you can do is you can minify all of your JavaScript, you can minify all of your CSS, and then include all those files in what's called a bundle, and then just bring in the bundle. Why do you want to do that? Because it loads much faster then. Kind of begs your question from before, Colin. You do it a certain way because things load faster. All right, and especially if you've got a web application that's something that's involved with e-commerce or whatever, you want it up. You want a person to immediately be able to see whatever it is you're trying to sell to them. So you just saw this. So far we've changed up here. We've changed the title of our program. It said application name and now says MVC movie. We've got my movie list here, and we've got movie list, movie app up in our tab. All right, that's what the author's showing you. All right, so the author says, hey, we've used C, the controller. We used that in all the previous ones. Now we're using V, which is view. But we have not yet used M, which is the model, which is our data. We're going to do that shortly, they say. All right, before we go to a database and talk about models, let's first talk about passing information from a controller to a view. Controller classes are invoked in response to a URL. Okay? How does that URL change? It changes. Do you guys remember the other day when we went through that simple example that I screwed up the first time? And then you had like edit, and you had delete, etc. Remember those? We had those hyperlinks. Every time you clicked one of those hyperlinks, the URL changed. When the URL changed, the right controller with the right method had to be called. Does that make sense? Because that's exactly what they're saying right here. Controllers are responsible for providing whatever data or objects are required for the view template to do its job. Now look at this. A best practice, a view template should never perform business logic or interact with a database directly. In English, the view should never be able to directly talk to the model. The model should never be able to talk directly to the view. Rather than the view talking to the model or the model talking to the view, what component do they talk to? What's left? If it's not the model or the view, what's left? The controller. So the controller calls the right model that does its thing, sends the data back to the model sends it back to the controller that calls the right view to show whatever it is it's supposed to show. That's that separation of concerns that Paul talked about earlier today. All right, the author says currently that welcome method is kind of a cluster. So they say let's fix it. Remember this? The author wants it now to look like this. So if you would please go into your Hello World controller and change your welcome method so it looks like what you see on screen. I'll leave it up there for a couple minutes. And again, Tony, I think you've already figured this out. You've got all the code for this in there too. But we got to get that working. This,
I'm really going to try hard at
I mean, I'd like to have you in class to tutor tomorrow, but if you can't make it, if you're doing that, I'd rather have you do that.
Yeah, I'll try to get done tonight. I'll do it for you. Thanks for that.
So again, this is in the Hello World index.cshtml file, and it's in the welcome method. Make these changes accordingly, please. And again, I know you've heard me give you this maybe bad analogy before, but we're putting our feet in the kiddie pool, all right? We're typing in stuff where you can see it. You're being told exactly what to type, etc. But it's being done that way on purpose. You'll be set up to the high dive eventually, and you'll be jumping off. All right. What I'm most concerned with, though, right now is even if it's not 100%, if you basically understand what's going on. All right. And again, it may not totally make sense, but I want to make sure basically at least you have an idea, all right, as far as what's going on. So we want to go back to that welcome that's in here. All right. It currently looks like this. It's returning a string. And we want to change it so it looks like this. Right there. So change your hello world controller, the welcome method, so that it looks like this. Previously, we'd been returning a string, bless you, because we were using the controller's method as both a controller method and as a view method. Now it's just a controller method, and it's calling a view method. Again, if it doesn't make sense to you, go back. You've got these now. You know, if you want to print it out, let me know. All right, it's quite a few pages, but I'll print it out. I mean, if you really say, no, I don't get this at all, then email me, let me know, and I will print you out a hard copy. All right? I think that there's one thing that Charles doesn't like about me is I'm a paper pig. All right. Now I'm on page 15 here. Now the view bag object contains all the data that will be passed to the view. All right. It says now we need to make a welcome view template because we don't have that yet. Please look on the screen. It says in the build method. Remember how we had to do a build when we were going through the last example? There's just a certain order of operations you have to follow here. All right? If I said to you right now, if I said, hey, let's stop here. I'm buying everybody dinner. Let's go over to Culver's on Wentzville Parkway. Probably most of you would go out of here. You turn right. You'd make a left on Mexico. Then you'd make a right on the Wentzville Parkway. Correct? That's probably the way most of you would go. But if I said, oh, and if there was a bad accident on, Wentzville and whatever, so you got to make a left turn here and you got to go around and you got to do this. All right? You'd still get there, right? But you'd probably get there faster taking a bit of a detour than you would if you sat there and waited for the accident to be cleared. What I'm telling you is the way that some of this works, you got to do a little detour. Whether you like it or not, it's just that's the way that it's set up. So again, I'm about to go in and create a welcome view, but before I do, the author is saying I should save everything and do a build solution. So I just did that. I should get my message up here. And the message should tell me that the build succeeded. All right. That's an errorless, so. All right, then next we're supposed to again right mouse click on our Hello World, in our Hello World folder under views, choose add view and call it welcome. All right, again, not a hard process. We want to come in here just like we just did. Right mouse click on our Hello World views, choose Add View, and we want to call this Welcome. All right, click Add. There's our welcome right there. And this is what they want us to do. Now, before you even type anything, please look up on the screen. In English, this is saying, give me a list of all my movies. What's the problem with that right now in our program? Yes, 5 words. We ain't got no movies. So it'll do this, but we ain't got no movies. So it's not like it's going to print anything out. All right? So this is the welcome.cshtml file. Please change yours so it looks like this. I'll change mine in just a couple minutes. And the timing is working out perfectly. We'll be done right around 4. Like I said, if I get emails from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you tomorrow that say, hey, this is confusing, please print me out a hard copy. Try to send them to me before my class tomorrow so I can print them out. Send them before you leave today if you can. All right? I don't want to say, hey, raise your hand if you want a copy. Because then some people might think, well, no one else is. I want one, but I feel stupid, so I won't do it. So just send me an email. So this is setting the title. That's just going to say welcome. This in English means loop through all of our movies. That's all it means. So I'm going to grab all this, copy it to the clipboard, go into my welcome.cshtml, and overwrite everything that was there. It's funny, I never have problems like this, but I am today, so. Should look like that. We're just about done. I want to show you one more thing that literally would take 30 seconds to show you. All right. So what else are we told to do in here? Run the application. All right. They tell us to go in there and do that. Scott num times equal 4, so it says hello Scott 4 times. Wow. So let's see if indeed that works. So I'm going to save. All right. I'm going to run my welcome and tell it to view it in the browser. So ampersand name equals Jeff. Oh, sorry, that's question mark. Name equals Jeff. Ampersand num times equal 6. See that? All right. So the last thing I want to show you, like I said, it'll literally just take a minute. Did you notice? Look up on the screen here. Do you know that all this stuff is movable and dockable? Everything that's in here? So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to throw it over here. I'm going to throw this up here. Throw this over here. I'm going to grab this and throw it over here. And I made a mess. All right? I don't know if you know this or not, so if you do, I'm not trying to, insult you. But if I go to Tools, and I go to import and export settings, and I just say reset all settings, next. I don't have to save these because that's a cluster. No, just reset them, next. For Visual C#, finish. Close. It put everything back again. Just kind of nice to know in case you ever do get screwed up. So again, it's just tools, import and export settings, reset all settings. That's all. Has everybody been able to keep up so far? All right, because we've got on, I think on here, lessons 1, 2, and 3. And I've been going for an hour and 10 minutes. You know, it seems a lot longer, I know. But, so we've got those first, what is it, 3 lessons or 4 lessons? I don't even remember what it was. 3. We just added a view. So we'll pick it up there. We did the getting started, the adding a controller, the adding a view. So tomorrow we'll get as far in the rest of this. So tomorrow we'll add a model. So there will be data. In an ideal world, we'll finish this tomorrow. We may or may not. I don't really care, but we'll get as many of the next 8 lessons in here done as we possibly can. All right? That's all I've got.